William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening. William Dockery at Two Hats Publishing. This is where I started at the beginning of this adventure, and I hollered up to some people, which turned out to be some Dart staffers, asking if there was a handicap entrance, and they didn't know. They quickly took their little yellow tags off and stuck them in their pockets. So I ended up carrying my 150-pound bag of equipment up those 3 flights of stairs. So leave with the Dart to try and find a place. Okay, nice people. Something I wasn't aware about this building. They do have a handicap entrance, which I wasn't aware of, and unfortunately Dart didn't aware of. I was visiting when I first got here, somewhere around 5:30. They didn't know that there was a handicap entrance. I have everything I need to know.
So this board talks about project history of D2, starting from 2007 when we started the first D2 study, and to look at different alternatives downtown. In 2010, the recession delayed the project and we didn't pick an alternative at that point in time. In 2013, we reinitiated the study with an FTA grant, given all the different changes going on in downtown, and that led us to select a locally preferred alternative in September of 2015. And we recently, in November of 2015, a few months later, got authorization into project development, and that's the phase we're in right now for the project.
This is the project development.
So this represents the project development schedule, and it lays it out related to key milestones as we go through this phase of the process. It's generally a 2-year schedule, and the 1, 2, 3, 4 that you see on that represents the different milestones related to public involvement. So we are at milestone number 2 right now, and that's where we're reviewing existing conditions that we've collected, which will be the basis of our environmental impact statement, and the engineering to date. Later on in 2016, we'll have some more information on engineering, and we'll have the preliminary impact assessments done, where we'll know where an impact might be and what the mitigation options could be for the identified impacts. The schedule is that by the beginning of 2017, we would have a supplemental draft EIS available for public review, and then that would be followed a few months later by a final EIS and a record of decision from FTA. Once that's done, that basically closes out the 2-year project development phase, and we'd proceed into the next phase, which is called engineering. Yep. So, that's fine.
Because it's not based solely on planning.
Well, no, I totally understand that.
So there's not a direct correlation between percent funding as and the final rating. It's a significant impact or driver, but there are other factors. There's other factors coming to play.
So all things being equal, if you ask for less than 50%, you get a higher rating.
Not necessarily. So we actually have pushed out a lot of information on this issue this week. If you look at the Dart Facebook page, we've done a white paper on just this issue that might shed some light on it for you.
Well, because we FOIA'd your submission.
I'm sorry?
We FOIA'd your submission. That's where it's on purpose.
And so this week, we've gotten that question quite a bit recently.
Yeah. So it's an interesting question.
Well, it's interesting. I'm just suggesting to you that we have a very close collaboration with FTA staff, and we know how they do the evaluation.
Okay. So the white paper addresses some aspect of this question?
Exactly. It addresses that question specifically that we pushed out this week on our Facebook page. And so, because we, oh, to this question with B2, and it has to do with our funding plan and why we requested for that. Basically, B2 find this, whatever you call it, how do you identify it, for Facebook page? Well, what I would tell you is go to dark.org/D2, and then there's a link to the Facebook page. Now, the white paper I'm talking about may actually be on the project website as well. But what you would Google is what we call dark dating. And so we push out on social some information like that to respond to some of the questions we've been getting.
So I know we call the locally preferred, and that's the city council, the dark board that kind of voted on. When I was reading online, I haven't found any downtown association that's for anything. They seem to all be against all three options, and they're all saying, wait, we need to be an underground.
I think.
Is there any association that's in favor? A downtown association that's in favor of this?
Sure.
Which one?
But
No, which one?
So Downtown Dallas Incorporated favors an alignment.
Yeah, they do. Sure. One of these three.
Yep.
Okay. That was different than what I heard, but okay.
I would tell you the Coalition for New Dallas favors an alignment. Now they have a suggestion for a slightly different definition. But
Coalition for New Dallas.
We have a lot of support for. We have a lot of support for the project. They have a different alignment.
I'm not talking about the project. I'm talking about these specific alignments.
Now they may all have desired tweaks to it.
Okay.
Like underground.
That's what I heard. Everyone I've looked at said they should be underground.
Coalition for New Dallas does not want a surface rail.
Just to not everything.
Okay, I'm just asking too. That's all. Downtown Inc., Dallas Neighborhood Association, Deep Elm Association, Coalition for New Dallas. They're all saying underground.
Because I think DDI is not for alignment, they're for preferred of the options.
Which was his question.
They're asking for it as well.
No.
Why can't you just delay construction until you have funding or you borrow the money? I mean, Dallas has a lot of money.
I think that's possible. But the need is now.
The need does not justify a means to the end. In other words, you can't screw up Dallas anymore by just building more surface rail.
We would probably have to agree to disagree. I would suggest to you that at-grade surface doesn't screw up Dallas. I respect your opinion.
I'm sorry. Have you ever gone from Oak Cliff to
You just took the Dallas Marathon away from what
Oak Cliff to DFW? You can't do it. You got to go through downtown Dallas. It takes an hour and 15 minutes. Every other major city in the world, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, LA, they don't have surface rail going
They
through
built their subways 50 years, 100 years ago.
Why can't you build them now?
It's just not the way it's done today in the urban environment. Transit is a part of the urban fabric. We probably come from different sides on this. But
Well, you may live in Carrollton, and I live in downtown Dallas.
I live downtown Dallas. I'm suggesting to you that transit has a place in the urban fabric, if done properly,
Underground.
Yeah, the one thing I love in other cities is the express lanes, the express trains. So you get the DFW.
So let me give you my example. Let's talk about San Francisco and the trolleys.
Trolleys are totally.
It's
that's not
transit.
mass transit.
It's rail
If you go
transit.
from San Francisco Airport to downtown, it's subway.
Downtown
and you get there instantly.
Downtown San Francisco, rail transit is all the surface, and it is part of San Francisco. Why couldn't this happen here?
I'm sorry, I've gone from San Francisco Airport to downtown San Francisco underground the whole way.
That's a totally different trip than downtown San Francisco. And we're going to disagree, and that's okay. That's okay, and I respect your opinion fully, and I'm glad you're here. I'm just suggesting to you that if done properly, it can become part of downtown.
Do you like the way that DART currently goes from downtown through Deep Elm under I-345?
I don't like the piece of good habit. Yes.
I have an apartment in Uptown, and for me to go to Deep Elm to Uptown during rush hour, yes. it's all up and down gates.
I don't
and the
disagree.
city of Dallas traffic department was saying, this is crazy, Dart. You can't put a rail through all these converging streets. But you like it? Absolutely. I think it is part of downtown.
Stuck at the light for 30 minutes trying to get through.
So let me ask you a question.
I'm trying to go.
Let me ask you a
I'm
question.
trying to go a half a mile, and it takes me 20 minutes because the surface rail going through that area.
Right.
I'm sorry. I think if it were underground, it would be better.
The other thing, Dallas Morning News, they talk about
Now,
lowering 345.
you have to take into account the financial affordabilities. That is just a reality. And yes, are there things that you would do differently if you had all the money in the world? Absolutely. But as developers, you know that there is financial realities to what you do.
So if it adds a lot of money, whatever that amount might be, to make it subway, as some people might prefer, how on earth would that money be? Would Dart have to postpone the project?
That was his question.
I
He's
just
right.
postpone it.
In order to cash flow that type of project, you would have to build up the reserves, and you would have to postpone the project 20 years.
Or somebody else have to come forward
with the Delta.
yeah. And do the feds, is it
It's FTA.
FTA, would they participate in that potentially, or they still have?
No. So our analysis, and you're going to disagree. Our analysis indicates that a project at $1.3 million does not meet the criteria for federal funding. Because here's the thing you got to
money elsewhere.
Because when we put the project in a subway, we don't pick up any more riders. And so the cost-benefit analysis really nosedives.
Yeah. And there's competing cities.
Well,
the same dollars.
That's true.
So, question, was the goal, maybe I'm confused. I thought the goal was to provide a way around going through downtown so you don't get to slow down, provide a faster route around.
No.
That's not the goal.
No.
What's the main goal?
To provide access to people that are destined for downtown. And what we also
You have it already today, so
what we also need, but we need additional capacity because we've got 8 corridors that are feeding into 1 mile.
the goal is not to be able to get people around downtown faster.
You said around.
Right.
No,
Okay.
there are other projects that do that already. This is to get people to downtown. Obviously.
Well, that's what I'm curious.
Obviously. So they're trying to get the jobs. And what's really interesting is the greatest growth in downtown is residential.
I know, and that's where you screw it up by going right to all the residential buildings. Could be. Can I stand outside your bedroom and honk a 120 decibel horn at 2 in the morning? You'll call the cops on me if I do that, won't you?
So we got safety issues that we have to be mindful of.
I want to sleep though. Can I get my
But it's all part of being downtown. Right? I mean, you get woken up by
I've been in downtown Chicago. You know how the light rail works
Yeah.
through downtown Chicago.
Right.
well, it's all aerial on the L.
That or underground, and it works great.
Can I get my Dart expert's name for friends?
Me? Yeah. Tom Shelton.
Okay, Gary.
Are you an email person?
No, I want to
I wanted to make sure that no one says I'm faking this.
So this represents the program of interrelated projects that we're pushing through the FTA process. The program of interrelated projects process is relatively new for FTA, so this is something that we're doing sort of as a pilot program, and there's 3 projects associated with it. One is the D2 project, of course, which is represented by the red number 2. We're also advancing platform extensions on the red and blue lines so they can accommodate 3-car trains. There are 28 stations being modified as part of that project. And then the third project is a central streetcar link downtown. That has not yet got into the project development phase. That's pending some additional coordination with the City of Dallas.
Right. And that's part of the reason why you get the sinkholes
Right. You got it? Tell me about this one.
So this board represents the grant process that we're walking through with FTA. We're going through what's called a core capacity process for the platform extensions project as well as for D2. And so that blue box that you see, project development, that's the phase we're in right now. As soon as we finish that for both projects, we'll proceed into engineering. And that's where more detailed design is done so that you can work with the FTA to get a full funding grant agreement for the money that we're seeking for the project. Streetcar would take a slightly different approach to seek a small starts grant, which is a little bit less intense than a core capacity grant process. And we should be working with the city to submit that project into that process later this year or next year.
Let's go to the bottom one here real quick. I got it.
So this map shows what the recommended preferred alternative is for a streetcar link through the center portion of downtown. So this would connect up the existing modern streetcar that ends at Union Station right now with the McKinney Avenue trolley. So right now the recommendation is along Main Street. Several other alternatives were examined through an alternatives analysis process. So this is still under discussion with the City of Dallas, and so once they make a decision on a preferred route, it could be this, it could be something else, then we'll move forward with this project.
Thank you. Oh, tell me about this one.
So this,
Platform extension.
yeah, platform extension. So we're making modifications at 28 stations along the red and blue lines, and these were the earlier stations built as part of the starter system and part of the early expansion. They can currently accommodate 2-car trains in most cases. The orange and green lines can accommodate longer 3-car trains. So by extending the platform length, we can operate longer trains, which increases our passenger capacity and our flexibility to operate different train lengths throughout the system. This project is in project development as well and should be in place by 2020.
Okay, so this one kind of down here kind of labels out which platforms.
Right, yeah, this basically shows the locations of the different platforms that we're working on right now for extensions. 11 along the south and 17 along the north.
Where do we go?
We can go over here.
I thought they should give me
accommodate us actually getting
what we're looking at here.
So the D2 alignment is the second alignment in the downtown area. It starts at Victory Station and it runs on the surface across Victory Avenue, across Houston, and enters the parking lot at the Perot Museum. And that's where we're going to have our first at-grade station. And then from there it goes underneath Woodall Rogers, and it comes under from the outer road, crosses the outer road here, and once it enters this parking lot, the plan is it's going to start diving down into a tunnel. So as it starts going down, it'll be into the full tunnel at about this spot right here. And then it's going to be a full tunnel running 2 portholes underneath. And then we're going to have an underground station called Metro Center Station. And that's right next to the West End, existing West End station, and the bus transfer center. So it's strategically located adjacent to those. Now when you leave, we're going to jump over to here. We're going to jump from this. This is the same map, but so it's underground. This is the big, tall Bank of America Center right here. And so as the train leaves this station, it's going to turn. Now there is a proposed spur here to go to the convention center. Probably will not do that right now. There's no funding for that, but we're planning for that. But then the main line will go and turn and be underground and zigzag through here. And once it crosses Underwood Street, it starts coming out of the ground. And it would start approaching ground surface, and when it hits Young Street, it will be at grade on the surface. Yeah.
all of a sudden the city's having to buy that.
Very good explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then the rest, the other half, we call it the eastern half. That's where the three different options are. And then it wraps up into Deep Ellum area.
You want to do a quickie on that? Or?
Sure, we can.
We'll go around.
I would assume it's got back.
Can we get for a second?
Yeah.
So we'll start right here. This is where the alignment comes out of the tunnel and comes on Young Street at grade.
This little
And it comes right in front of the city hall. And right there we would have the government center station. Now this station, we would have the road and the street inside of the rail.
It's too wide.
So the rail
you don't feel
and
safe
stations would be on the outside.
Where do you cross? Do you cross at the intersection?
And then once the alignment would leave here, it would be at grade. And the locally preferred alternative is down Jackson. So it would run this
I know
route
that is a wide street.
and go down Jackson.
What we've shown here is
We would potentially considering another station here in the Harwood district area. And then when it would leave there, it would come down and eventually run on Commerce, go under Interstate 345, and then go across Good Latimer, and then it would split, and then the green line would go this way. The orange, our other line, might go to the Deep Ellum station right here.
are going somewhere.
So now there's some other alternatives that we're looking at here. One is taking that and looking at Wood.
Other than.
And another one is taking it down Young Street.
And that.
If we did that, we have some potential stations there or a potential station right there.
There's nothing here.
You're welcome.
Nothing but homeless people here.
Got it? Okay, so the next several boards that we're going to be looking at are process boards for different environmental categories that we're going to be evaluating in the environmental impact statement. So this board represents the evaluation process for historic resources. This is being coordinated with the Texas Historical Commission as well as the City of Dallas. And what we'll be looking at is potential resources within 300 feet of either side of the corridor that are 45 years or older. From the date that the project would open in 2021. So anything built in 1976 or prior is a potential candidate as a historic resource. So we'll go through and identify and work with the Historical Commission to figure out which ones are eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, and we will evaluate the potential impacts on those resources and determine if any mitigation is necessary.
Fantastic.
You're welcome. Can we squeeze in real quick, Victor? You can keep looking. We're just... Yeah, so this might be a little hard to see, but there are 93 potential historic resources that have been identified along the project corridor, and that's within that 300 feet of either side. So the dots that you see on the map represent the different structures or group of structures, and so all of these are 1976 or older. Some of them are already on the National Register. Some of them might be a city landmark. Some of them, it's unknown until we go through our process to determine if they are actually historic resources. So these are the resources that we'll be looking at as part of the environmental process. Yeah, so the Section 4F process applies to parklands and historic resources, and so it's a federal guideline that basically says that we need to make a special effort to preserve parks and recreation lands and historic sites. So anytime we affect a park or a historic structure, this applies, and so we look at how we might have a use of a park, and if we have a use of a parkland, we have to determine if there is any other prudent and feasible alternative to that. And so our goal is obviously to avoid impacts to those resources so we don't have any impacts under Section 4F.
Okay, sounds good. All right, gotta focus thinking.
Yeah, so parklands along the project corridor, there are 5 that we've identified that exist. They're shown on this map. None of them right now we think we would have to actually use some of the property. We're primarily staying within public rights of way, but we still need to do more detailed design to make sure. There is one potential new park called Harwood Park that could be potentially affected by one or more of the options along the eastern segment, but this is the existing parklands as we know it downtown right now.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so visual impacts are another important part of the process because we are introducing a new physical element to downtown. And so what we're going to be doing through this process is dividing the corridor up into different units. So we have 9 different segments basically along the project corridor that have similar characteristics. And what we're going to do is do an assessment. It'll be more of a qualitative assessment to determine, once the project's in place, how might it affect the visual quality through that part of downtown. And that could mean the new catenary poles or wires associated with the project, new track, tunnel portals. And so once we see what the project looks like in place, that's when we can start to develop treatments, whether it's urban design, different types of hardscape treatments, landscaping, along the corridor and at stations, as well as an art and design program that we put in place at each one of our stations in our system, and that will help to integrate the project into the community better.
There you go. There you are. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so in terms of noise and vibration, what we need to start with is doing measurements downtown so we can establish what the existing noise levels are. We've taken several noise measurements along the corridor as well as some vibration testing. And so this is our baseline of data. And what we'll do is add the project in a noise and vibration model, and that will provide us with a projected noise with the project in place. And then we'll use FTA criteria to determine if that increase in noise, if there is one, warrants mitigation, and there are certain thresholds you have to meet for mitigation to be considered.
Okay, looks like we got one last one. Okay, tell me about this one. This is part of that noise and vibration.
Right. So this just outlines the process that we go through and what kinds of land uses are considered sensitive to noise. So on the left, you can see we start with documenting existing noise levels, and that's what that prior map showed us. Then we'll estimate noise with the project, and then we'll use the FTA guidelines to determine what the level of that impact is and where mitigation might be needed. So the land uses that we'll look at in terms of where there could be impacts are land where quiet's essential. So amphitheaters, recording studios, and some historic properties where quiet is needed, those are considered sensitive resources for noise. Places where people sleep, so homes, apartments, hotels, hospitals, and there are several apartments and condominiums and homes along the corridor, especially in the eastern end. And then institutional uses, so libraries, churches, theaters, cemeteries, historic sites, parks. So we'll be looking at all those resources along the corridor to determine if there is a noise or vibration impact. And there's a variety of different mitigation treatments that we can do to try to reduce those impacts to an acceptable level within the FTA guidelines.
Well, can you tell my audience who my wonderful reader is?
Well, I'm Kay Shelton. I'm a project manager in Dark Capital Planning.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.